You're listening to How to Drink Less, and I'm your host, Adriana Cloud. Whether your goal is to cut back, take a break, or say goodbye to alcohol for good, this podcast will help you stop drinking on autopilot, learn how to manage cravings, and feel fully in control around alcohol. It's easier than you think. Listen on to find out how. Hey everyone! Thank you for joining me for another episode. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying spring, or at least it's spring when I'm recording this episode, although maybe it's not spring when you're listening. But anyway, today we are going to be talking about language and words. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a poet and editor, and I'm already deeply obsessed with everything to do with language and word choice and meaning and all of that. But what I want to unpack in this episode is how we talk to ourselves and to other people about our drinking habits, because what we say to ourselves matters. I love that quote by Bruce Lee that goes, "Words have energy and cast spells." I know it's so cheesy, but I believe it's true. Words are powerful and have energy. Beyond the dictionary definition of a word, there is so much meaning that we attach to words. The language we use reflects what we believe about ourselves, and it can either reinforce limiting beliefs or help us to more fully embody that higher version of ourselves, the person that we're striving to be. So when you say things like, "I can't drink," that's very different from saying, "I don't drink." "I can't drink" sounds like punishment for doing something wrong, whereas "I don't drink" is a powerful decision, a declaration of your identity. And that difference between "I can't" and "I don't" is what I want to untangle with you today. So, why is it a problem to say "I can't drink"? Mostly because it feels really restrictive and disempowering. It presupposes a boundary that we're pushing against, like a wall that's keeping us in and we can't get out. Saying "I can't drink" creates a sense of external control, like you're following someone else's rules for what's allowed or not allowed. And it makes you feel like you don't have agency over your own choices because you have to follow the rules. It also opens the door for comparison. If you're telling yourself that you can't drink, it's natural to start looking around to other people and notice that other people can drink. And it builds resentment because you think other people have something that you're not allowed to have. "Oh, look at Mary over there enjoying her Aperol spritz in the sun. That must be nice. Why can't I have that?" And that kind of comparison can lead you to self-pity and feeling sorry for yourself. When you tell yourself that you can't have something, it centers deprivation. The implication behind "I can't drink" is, "I wish I could drink. I would drink if I could." That's what you're really saying to yourself. "I want to be drinking, but I'm not allowed, or I shouldn't." Notice how that immediately triggers a sense of missing out. Suddenly, alcohol becomes the most exciting thing in the room, the main character in whatever situation you're in. Whether you're just having dinner at home and your partner is having a glass of wine while you're drinking water, or you're out with friends in the pub watching the game and everyone else is drinking beer while you're having a lemonade. Alcohol becomes the way that you evaluate the experience. And if you're not drinking, you over-identify as the one who is missing out. You make yourself the outsider, pining over what you can't have. I don't need to tell you that this doesn't feel very good. No one wants to be the outsider, feeling like they can't fully participate in what everyone else is doing and missing out on the fun or enjoyment. So if that's the story you're telling yourself, it's going to feel pretty miserable. But the other problem with thinking about drinking in terms of "I can't" and in terms of rules that you're supposed to follow is that it has the risk of backfiring. because nobody likes being told what to do and nobody likes being restricted. And when that's your story about your relationship with alcohol, that you can't or you shouldn't drink, you're actually more likely to rebel against that at some point and end up drinking. Because essentially, if you keep telling yourself that you can't drink, you're using willpower to obey the rules. And as I've discussed before, willpower is a limited resource. And you run the risk of getting to a point where you've had enough rules and restrictions and you just want to do whatever the hell you want. And when the lid blows off the pressure cooker, it's not pretty. If you do at some point decide that you're done following the rules and you're just going to drink, it's more likely that it will turn into a binge because it feels like a temporary escape from restriction. Your brain is probably thinking, this is my chance. I need to make up for lost time, so let me drink as much as I can before they catch me and put me back in the cage. Okay, maybe those are not the exact words running through your mind, but that's the sentiment. That this is a temporary reprieve, so you'd better live it up to the fullest. And then you're more likely to go into a shame spiral and beat yourself up for what happened, which again feels awful and which probably means that it will take you longer to get back on track and to recommit to your goals. I hope by now you can see how the simple phrase, I can't drink, is anything but innocent. In fact, it can wreak havoc in your relationship with alcohol and how you're approaching changing your drinking habits. So let's talk about I don't drink and why that's a much better choice. That's because when you say I don't drink, it's less about what you're missing out on and more about who you're choosing to become. You're not centering alcohol as the main focus and the meaning of your experiences and interactions. Instead, you're centering your personal values and your goals. When you say, I don't drink, you're reclaiming your agency. Rather than following external guidelines, when you identify someone who doesn't drink, you're acting from your own free will. I don't drink is just a fact about you, a tidbit about your life, rather than a restriction that's weighing you down. And this shift is everything. This is the shift from feeling at the mercy of an external rule to feeling in control and making a conscious choice. So if you catch yourself thinking, I can't drink, first of all, notice that this is not actually true. Of course you could drink. It's within the realm of options for you to drink. You are perfectly capable of drinking. And you, again, are an adult with free will. You could absolutely choose to drink. And again, this is not about being pedantic with word choice. It's about the meaning that we attach to those words. I don't tell myself that I can't eat a pint of ice cream for breakfast. Of course I could do that, but I don't do that because it's just not something I do. I'm not a person who eats a pint of ice cream in the morning. It's not about restriction. It's just not who I am. You see the difference? And it's the same with drinking. It's really important to acknowledge your own agency and autonomy and remind yourself that you get to decide. You could drink, but you're choosing not to. And remind yourself why you're choosing not to drink. How does that choice align with your long-term goals? When you go for the non-alcoholic option, how does that help you to become more of the person you want to be? It helps to also remind yourself what you're gaining. So instead of focusing on what you're not doing and what you're saying no to, ask yourself, what is this choice giving me? What am I saying yes to? What am I gaining by choosing not to drink? And the answer could be a better night's sleep, being present in the moment, more energy tomorrow morning, being able to taste and enjoy my food better because I'm not numbing my palate with alcohol, self-trust and self-respect, the pride of keeping my commitment, and so on. Your list will vary, but challenge your brain to expand and add more to it. What else is the benefit of choosing not to drink? And finally, every time you say, I don't drink, you're stepping more firmly into the identity of a non-drinker. And no, you don't have to be 100% sober or committed to long-term sobriety in order to think of yourself as someone for whom alcohol is not the automatic choice. Notice how I can't drink is more about the alcohol and the act of drinking, whereas I don't drink is about your identity. It's more about the big picture of who you are as a person and less about what you order at the bar on a random Friday in May. The more you practice identifying as someone who doesn't drink, the more that identity takes over and becomes the framework from which you make decisions. If you see yourself as a non-drinker, you will start to act like a non-drinker by default without having to remind yourself every time that you don't drink. This shift from what am I doing to who am I being is huge. The more you can lean into that and think about who you want to be and who you are already becoming, the easier it becomes to make aligned choices in the moment. I don't smoke. I have smoked maybe 10 cigarettes in my life when I was in high school, and that was that. So I'm a non-smoker. But I don't go around saying I can't smoke. I just don't smoke, and that's the end of that. I don't have to decide not to smoke every time I'm near people who smoke or in a store where they sell cigarettes. And I don't litter. If I'm out and about and I have something I need to throw out, like an empty bottle of water or a protein bar wrapper or what have you, if there is no garbage can around me, I will carry my trash with me the whole day if I have to, until I find somewhere to dispose of it. I will not just leave my empty bottle on the bus like some people definitely do. But I don't have to remind myself not to litter. I don't tell myself that I can't litter. Of course I could. But because I think of myself as someone who doesn't litter, my actions naturally follow from that bigger choice about who I want to be. It's not a debate every time. It's just something I do automatically because this is who I am. A person who never willingly leaves garbage in places where garbage doesn't belong. Okay, maybe that's kind of a silly example, but you see what I mean. This is who I am, and therefore, this is how I act. Our brains love congruence, and this is an example of that. When you see yourself as a person who doesn't drink, you tend to act like a person who doesn't drink. So my advice for you is to start noticing if your internal monologue sounds like, I can't drink. And if that's the case, please know you're not alone. It's so normal to think in those terms. And it's not inherently wrong to think in those terms, but I want you to just start noticing how it feels when you tell yourself that you can't drink. Does it feel good? I'm gonna guess not really. I'm gonna guess it feels pretty miserable and restrictive. And again, it's okay if that's where you are right now. The first step is always awareness. Before we can change anything, we need to be aware of the problem. So start by noticing how often the story of I can't shows up for you. And then remind yourself that you could drink, but you're choosing not to. And spell out why you're making that choice and how that choice is helping you to become the person you want to be in the long term. That's how you reclaim your agency, not by resisting the drink, but by owning the choice not to drink. You're not being denied something, you're actively choosing something better. And every time you say, I don't drink, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who shows up for themselves, someone who acts in alignment with their goals, someone who is building a life they're proud of. And that's power. All right, my friends, that's where I'll leave you for today. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment to rate or review the podcast, I would be super grateful because that's what really helps more people who need the support to find the podcast. Thank you so much. Take good care, and I'll talk to you next week. If you're looking for practical advice for how to say no to alcohol and say yes to yourself, you will want to get on my email list. Sign up to receive my free guide with 7 steps to kickstart your sobriety. The link is in the show notes, so go and grab it now, and I'll see you soon in your inbox.